I've been praying about the period of the Feast of Tabernacles, which, as you know, is the final harvest known as ingathering. And it's a wonderful feast filled with joy, celebration, and expectation as we look forward to the time when Yeshua will dwell on earth with mankind and bring peace for 1,000 years, that period known as the millennium. And we're going to celebrate that at Father's house this coming week. Aaron is speaking on Tabernacles tomorrow, and then we come into the Tabernacles week, and we'll be having a celebration meal next Friday at the Holiday Inn. If you haven't booked in, please book in for that. That's a wonderful time. I find it sad, however, that this week 2 people have been murdered near a synagogue in Germany, and Turkey has attacked Kurds in Syria. On the news this morning, we hear that Kurdish civilians have been the casualties of the attacks by Turkey, and in fact a 9-month-old baby boy was killed by Turkish forces yesterday. It's so sad. However, I recognize that only Yeshua will bring about true peace on earth, so we have to keep praying for his peace, not man's peace, as particularly in the Middle East, as there's so many wars going on with ISIS and in Syria, etc. But I've been praying about the end time ingathering, and I've been led to focus on harvesting, which is always a wonderful thing to do, but very hard work. I'm harvesting a variety of fruit and vegetables at the moment, and I'm doing that weekly and have done for quite a while, providing enough food to freeze, pickle, make jam and jellies, eat for the coming week, and give away. This week I've harvested cabbage, purple sprouting broccoli, celeriac, potatoes, runner beans, courgettes, sweet corn, curly kale, spinach and beetroot, blueberries and apples. I've also got a constant supply of herbs. We at Father's House have also built raised beds for people to grow in the garden at the rear of the congregation. 4 of our ladies have grown an amazing variety of produce again this year, and they also are able to enjoy the harvesting of fresh fruit, vegetables and salads for themselves. It's beautiful to see that. Harvest, however, is not the end of growing, but it is a new beginning, because as we start to prepare the ground ready for planting the following year, we are also thinking of what seeds to put into the ground, and we're preparing for that. The millennium years, when Yeshua's reign takes place, it's a preparation for a new heaven and a new earth. And Lynn, in a week tomorrow, will be teaching on this very period of the new beginning. And I'm already thinking about planting and preparing seed for a new crop next year, as we are harvesting this old crop, then we're looking towards planting new crops for next year. So I'm looking at planting broad bean seeds this month, sweet pea seeds for cut flowers next summer. Yesterday morning I planted about another 100 daffodil bulbs ready for picking next spring, so that we will have fresh flowers in the house. I much prefer to pick fresh flowers from the garden for Shirley rather than buy them, as most flowers in the shops are imported. Whilst I've been praying, I felt God speaking to me and giving me a warning about what is ahead. I've been thinking about Joseph and how he looked ahead and stored, and I've been drawn to 2 scriptures, both of them in Proverbs and both referring to harvest. I have felt these scriptures are being used by God to speak to me prophetically regarding the UK. I don't feel God is necessarily speaking about Brexit, but it may be more generally about the future in the UK, and maybe involving weather patterns in Europe, because European countries supply us with most of our fruit and vegetables. And if they have bad weather, then the price of produce here in the UK rockets. These 2 proverbs that I felt the Lord leading me to warn us to be wise and prudent in regard to harvesting our crops. I could spiritualize this, of course, but I do feel God is speaking to me about a natural harvest. These are the Proverbs. Proverbs 20, verse 4. The lazy person does not plough in season. Harvest comes and there is nothing to be found. And Proverbs 10, verse 5. A child who gathers in summer is prudent, but a child who sleeps in harvest brings shame. We in the UK are vulnerable to world prices and trends because we are not self-sufficient in producing food. Of course, we can't grow things like citrus fruits, avocados, and many other exotic fruits and vegetables, so we have to import those. However, we can grow the best apples and potatoes in the world, but we still import so many. For example, we supply places like the Middle East with 246,000 apples per day, but we import 4.4 million apples per day. The UK imports £18.8 million worth of fruit and vegetables every day, mainly through London Gateway ports. However, we only export £1.4 million worth of produce per day. We import from over 100 countries, so weather conditions in other countries has a huge effect on prices. The prices we pay in the supermarkets, for instance, rocket when there is influences in weather in the rest of the world. Most of our cut flowers come from Africa through the Netherlands, and the Netherlands buy cut flowers from all over the world and then send them and distribute them to the UK. And we are able to actually grow a lot of the things that we import. Despite our climate being similar to the Netherlands, 45% of the tomatoes we eat in the UK are imported from the Netherlands. We have similar chalk bedrock to that of the Champagne region in France, and are now supplying the USA with English sparkling wine of a really high quality. But we import so much more sparkling wine from the rest of the world. And in fact, when we look at the containers that are coming into the UK full of produce, those containers go back, many of them empty. Over half the containers that come in full go back out empty. And that affects costing as well. We will, of course, never be self-sufficient, but we can certainly produce more than we do at the moment. I've spoken to a number of young people about growing their own fruit and vegetables, and they, in their honesty, say that they can't be bothered, as it's too easy to buy from the supermarkets. But what if the price rockets? What if there's problems in getting food from the supermarkets? We need to grow our own. Last time I felt the Lord speaking to me about the UK was about 2 years ago, and that was in regard to the difficulties we're experiencing today at the moment concerning Brexit and the state of our government. I recall that people were very excited about Brexit, etc., but I felt the Lord saying this is a time of great difficulties, particularly for our government. If I am hearing God correctly now, we need to look at ways in which we can be more self-sufficient and grow as much produce as we can or are able. This would mean that we would not be so reliant on foreign imports and price variations. I know it's difficult for most people to grow, and most often people don't have the room, but there is always some way we can grow something in whatever ground is available in our communities. Back gardens, waste pieces of ground, share a piece of ground. I'm actually really pleased that Lenora has got a raised bed in my orchard, and she's grown a lot of veg this year from that raised bed. If I can help giving you any ideas on how to grow and how to produce some of your own produce, please let me know, because we want to be, as Solomon says, prudent in these times, and we want to plan ahead. And if we can plan for a better diet, better lifestyle, and something which will give us satisfaction and not have us so self-reliant on European produce or European imports, then that is being prudent and being wise. So Shabbat Shalom, Mike Fryer.